Good evening all and welcome to episode 62 of the 3-for-1 Sky Fantasy podcast by Fantasy Football Hub. As we limp through, well, I'll say limp through, we've had some quite low scores, but actually some quite massive scores as well. I think this week we've seen a real range depending on who you captained, who was benched, and all that sort of stuff. Really interesting game week. My name is Fergi. I'm joined tonight by one of the most successful Sky managers in the game, Paul McAnulty. High flying Paul McAnulty, I should say. Paul, what a day of football we've just had.
Yeah, it was the Liverpool Man United game was some game, right?
Did you expect that? Because I've got to be honest, I wouldn't say I would have expected like 5-0, but I definitely expected maybe a 4-1 or 4-2. What were you kind of expecting from that game?
I had 3-1 in my head before 3-1. Going into the game. I was considering Liverpool don't look as solid as they have done at the back in recent years, but the way that they're playing and the way that Man United's defending, I did feel there was goals in the game, but I wouldn't have anticipated the 5-0.
You captain Salah?
I did, yeah.
Thank goodness for that. I really feel for those who didn't, because it was a tough call today as well, I think, wasn't it?
Not for me. I think not because I thought I did think Salah was a standout player to captain anyway, but I would always go with the ownership stats, as you well know the way that I play the game. So.
Indeed. There was a couple of transfers this week. I took out Lukaku. You brought him in last week. Absolutely sickening that is. Just bringing him in like 1 week. Got a 2 points ahead of this glorious run and brought him up. So I took the hint of Cancelo, who had 6 points in the end, and he's just a beast, isn't he? And I also took out Ben White, the disappointed Ben White, to Gray yesterday. So I think I ranked, had a decent green actually, just about, I went up from about 1,700 to about 1,000 overall, 33 transfers, which is not amazing, but I'm really happy this season that every transfer I've made with a plan, and it's reasonably worked out. Obviously, apart from Lukaku last week, which you can't do anything about. So you're in 64. Oh, apologies, mate. Go on.
No, I was going to say, if you hadn't held Ben White all that time, and you came up to the two single Arsenal days, what do you think you would have done?
I don't think I'd gone for Ben White because you wasn't it in the passing. I'd have probably, I'm not sure. I would have liked to say Aubameyang. I think it would have been Aubameyang. I definitely would have gone for someone like Smith Rowe. I don't think I would have gone for Saka. I probably wouldn't have gone for a defender. I'd probably have gone for Aubameyang. I think, which worked out really well for owners. I think I saw his ownership absolutely flew up, didn't he? Absolutely incredible.
It was up in the 50s, wasn't it? Like 50-odd%.
Absolutely mad. And then my plan, I've got like a very, very rough plan to go someone down, either a midfielder or a defender, down to Mbeumo in a couple of weeks' time, who did pick up a knock this afternoon, actually. I'm glad I didn't do it this afternoon, to release the funds to enable me to go Antonio to Kane for that big run. So that'll be another couple of transfers, but that will be going into December then. So 31 transfers going into December, hovering around, 1,000, hopefully better. Reasonably happy with that. 64th, Paul, and a slight fall because you were up as high as, I think it was like 35th or something. What
I knew with the double Brighton defence that's served me well up until now, going into Manchester City at home and then Liverpool away, that there was going to be a dip in overall position. So I wasn't too disheartened, and actually Dunk came away with 2 points, which was the same as Diaz from the Man City game yesterday. I was actually quite content with the outcome of that. So I anticipated a small dip. It wasn't too bad. So I'm definitely okay with that.
Definitely take 64th on you after.
Definitely.
Okay. For any new watchers and listeners, you are very, very welcome. If you haven't subscribed to us yet, please press the subscribe button in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. Set the alerts so you don't miss our live streams, which are 9 p.m. every Sunday evening right here on this channel. Also, please press the like button if you enjoy our content as we are live. Please feel free to join in the chat at any time. Let us know your thoughts on the topics or the relevant sections, and feel free to ask some questions throughout. Good evening, everybody. Colin Johnston scored 101 points. Sean Thorpe, 92, but I did see Sean as an absolute howler in FPL. I'm not sure what you finished on, Sean, but I know it was pretty bad. I think at somewhere like 3 or 4 o'clock this afternoon, you had about 14 points. So hopefully you had Salah and captained him. I'm not sure if you did. Joseph Robinson scored 136 and has flown back into top 2K. Very well played, sir. Norman Conquest, 135 up to 120th overall. Stephen C, 102, transferred Kane in for Jota. A little bit unlucky there. Johnny White, 135. Look at these scores. My goodness me. Julian Wardle, 125. Andy captained Havertz yesterday as well. That's really hard luck. We'll touch on Havertz in a little bit when we get to the ownership. L England, 116. Ryan, 122. Hello, everybody. Absolutely fantastic to have you with us. Good evening. Tonight, we will go through the weekly transfers, ins and outs. We'll look at some of the top owned players and how they performed this week. We'll look at the average transfers remaining. Paul is going to talk us through an Aubameyang plan over the coming weeks because he keeps meaning to shift him every week, but he thinks he still holds value over the coming weeks. And I'm not sure if still his ownership is still at 50% in the top 1K, but that's certainly what it was on Friday. We will then, and Paul has also got a few players that may go under the radar. That are going under the radar. We'll look ahead to Sky Game Week 12, answer some questions, and finish off with some mini league updates. So, firstly, looking at the transfers, ins and outs for the last 7 days, Jamie Vardy was brought in by 16,000 managers and in brilliant form. I mean, he is just what a player he is. He's just so evergreen, fantastic. Never seems to stop scoring points and scoring goals. He went off at half time today and he had strapping around his thigh or something along those lines. I've seen a tweet in the last half an hour actually though to say positive update, should be okay for next week. Now I'm not sure where that has come from. It was literally just as I glanced at my screen. Have you heard any more on that, Paul?
I heard he picked up a knock in the warm up.
Oh really? All right.
Said he was okay to continue, and it was just a persistent problem from then that caused him to go off at half time.
Well, hopefully he's going to be okay for his owners next week. 16,000 new owners. Mohamed Salah, finally, people are still bringing him in, and they will have been rewarded this afternoon. 8,500 brought in Salah. Aubameyang, as we know, 8,500 brought in Aubameyang. Cancelo, and I was one of these, also brought in by 7,000. He's just a fantasy beast, and he scored 6 points yesterday. Bonuses everywhere you look. Mendy, the keeper, 7.6. Have you changed your mind on Mendy, Paul? Because I know you're a bit kind of sweet at the start of the season on the cheaper keepers. Do you think he's the one to hold kind of long term?
Yeah, I want to get him in. I don't own him, and probably why I'm maybe not as high as and why I came back down this week as well, because I'm sat with Sa and I'm just holding Sa for that single captaincy day, and it's a tactic that worked in previous Sky seasons, and I don't think it works as well now holding these players on. It's part of the reason why I asked you about Ben White earlier on as well. It was see a lot of people talking about picking up captaincies, picking up new players, and thinking about a game 10 weeks down the road on the Monday night that they'll play. And there's so many injuries now happening to players, and players getting dropped in that time as well, that it's just not something I fancy doing as much now. If it's a set and forget player, like you're picking in a midfielder, is sort of a move that you then don't anticipate doing any more moves in midfield. Like, if you still didn't own Conor Gallagher and they had a Crystal Palace game coming up like down the line, and it was covering that off, then I would understand that if you're gaining an extra game and trying to free up budget. But so Mendy, I'm looking at entry points for Mendy, but then he goes to the African Cup of Nations as well in January. So I'm thinking to myself, well, how long do I want to wait to get him in, and then how many games is he going to play before he's off again?
I think they're going, aren't they? In between Christmas and New Year, maybe a couple of days after that. So you can probably have a kind of rough idea. I think that is normally about. I think that would probably be about Sky Game Week, because there's another international break in there, maybe 22 or something like that. So it's still a fair amount of games.
I was out for a walk with a friend earlier on today. He's a season ticket holder at Glasgow Rangers, and he was saying that Glasgow Rangers aren't releasing their Nigerian players until after the Old Firm game, which I think's on the 1st or 2nd of January. Yeah. I think it's on the 2nd of January. So if they're getting to do that, I don't know what the English Premier, is Liverpool really going to let Mane and Salah go.
Yeah, exactly.
If other clubs aren't releasing players at the same time. So I don't know if that's negotiable or what the situation is on that.
I'm sure. Again, I saw a tweet yesterday saying something along the lines of Klopp planning to hold on to them to like the 2nd of January. So maybe it's on similar things, and they may only actually miss a couple of games. Like if it like a couple of Premier League games with the way it works out with the FA Cup and all this sort of thing. So obviously we'll know a lot more nearer the time. But yeah, we can only plan up to then. Anyway, can't we? But I think the thing with the keepers for me week on week is 9 points. You'd be happy with 9 points off Diaz at 10.6 million every week, wouldn't you? Or most weeks, kind of 7 out of 10 weeks, you'd be over the moon with that. And we've got that. I feel we've got that with Mendy at 7.6 million, which to me is just and he also is an excellent shot stopper as well to kind of boot as well, as he showed a couple of weeks ago. De Bruyne was brought in by 6,100 teams, so they would have been disappointed. And Kai Havertz saw a massive spike in ownership. He was brought in by 6,000 as well, as was Son. Chalobah at 7.5 has seen so he's been interesting. I've seen him do well in other formats. I'm not too sure in Sky, but you say that. I've got Christensen at 8.3, and I'm not sure what Chalobah's points are, but I doubt they're way off, because I'm pretty sure that nearly every time Chalobah's played, they've kept a clean sheet, haven't they? So just to touch on the transfers out,
Chalobah's got 58 and Christensen's got 43.
There we go. That says it all. He could be one to think about maybe in the future. If they keep this rotation going, especially if you want to move to a back, a block Chelsea defense. It's not, it's not the worst thing. You could probably have the 5 at the back and the keeper. You'll absolutely mop up most weeks, I would guess. Lukaku transferred out of 40,000 teams. Just incredible. We still don't know how long he's out for. I mean, the guess is maybe 2 or 3 weeks. But then these were the fixtures where everyone brought him in, right? This Norwich one. Like, imagine how many goals he would have scored this weekend if he'd have played against Norwich. He'd have probably scored a hat-trick, wouldn't he? Like Newcastle. They've obviously got Newcastle next week and Burnley the week after. Alonso transferred out of 80,000 teams. So those who held on, he was incredibly tempted to bring in, wasn't he? Glad we waited that extra week or two. I think, I think we did the right thing there. Bruno and Ronaldo transferred out en masse as well, as is Pogba, who obviously will now get a 3-match ban as well. Pogba, if you hold on to Pogba, just get rid. I think he looks an absolute mess. Grealish out, Torres out, Jota out of quite a lot of teams as well after being rested last week, and Decore injured as well. 2,500 teams. And we had an update from Sky on average transfers remaining. Now this is probably out of date, obviously, because this would have been I think it was pre-Lukaku news, but top 5,000, 29 transfers left, top 1,029, top 100, 23 left, and top 10, just 11 left. You can probably ignore the top 2, but the bottom 2 are very prevalent indeed.
I saw a tweet from Bruyne _SkyFF, who's a really good account if people don't follow him already. He posts up man of the match. I think he's quicker on the buzzer than Dan usually is. So
he's very sharp, isn't he?
yeah, very, very sharp. He had a look at the comparison current game week. So he took those stats. So as you say, top 10, 11, 100, 23, 29, 29 for the top 1,000, top 6,000, top 5,000, sorry, and then compared it to last season. And people are using fewer transfers this season than they were last season in comparison. So top 10 at this point last season was 5.6, so that's against 11.1. Last season 13.7 for the top 100, 23.5, massive difference there. Top 1,000 last season 21.5, compare that to 29.6, and then top 5,000 25.2 compared to 29.1. So some more conservative transfer usage. See a lot of recognizable names up the top of some cash leagues and an overall leaderboard as well, and maybe that's part of the reason some experienced managers in there not using too many transfers and holding them back, knowing that they need them for the run-in.
Well, just thinking about how our season started last year, we were ranked, was it 130k after game week one, or absolute shambles. Whereas this year it's been completely different. All the options, not all obviously, but a lot of the options we thought would do well have done well, I think. Whereas last year we were slow off the mark. I don't even think we had Salah, did we? In game week one,
No, it was Aubameyang. Yeah, it was Aubameyang.
It was
Everyone was on
Aubameyang. We didn't
Aubameyang.
even have Salah, and there was also that early De Bruyne move as well, when they move Aubameyang to
Yeah.
De Bruyne, all this kind of stuff. So I think last year it was a struggle to find the right team and formation. So my guess would be that this year, I don't think I used any transfers pre-overhaul this year, which I always normally do, and it may be because the players we expected to perform well probably did. It's maybe been a bit more predictable. Obviously, last year, remember, we had those freak Liverpool results, and remember 7-2 to Villa and Spurs 6-1, all this stuff. Any thoughts on why you think it's different this year?
I think that Liverpool case is right. Remember, everyone had the Liverpool defence, like Robertson, Trent, and Van Dijk.
Captain Van Dijk from.
And then you got the Van Dijk injury against Everton.
Meant
that he came out, and a lot of people were moving on. Was it James Rodriguez and James Rodriguez and Calvert-Lewin? People jumped on those quickly. So, probably part of the reason as well.
Cool. Okay, so let's move on now then. And we've got the top 1K ownership. Paul, you want to just have a chat with these players?
So I thought instead of going through the match cards this week, we'll have a look at the top 21 players and how they performed at the weekend. And because of their high ownership, maybe this is an inclination of, or help understand why you've went up in rank or went down in rank over the weekend. So Salah way out in top. He scored 26 points today. So I think the majority of people would have captained him. I follow Dan's captain poll and play quite boring captain whoever the most picked player is in there. So there was a few people that went on, this is on FF stuff, so on Frank's site, and Dan runs a poll there. A few people had went Kane or suggested they were going to go Kane on there. I saw the person that was 13th overall had an open team, didn't own Salah and captain Tony, so they plummeted down the rankings today. Salah on 26 points, Rudiger 7 points. He was 1 point off a passing bonus, so he was on 58. Then Opta updated it to 59, and I sent a tweet out on Saturday as well because I saw a lot of people on Twitter asking or wanting to know where their assist was for the penalty. It's not, Sky's not like FPL where if the person that knocks the ball onto the defender's hand, they get the assist in FPL, but they don't get in Sky. It's actually only FPL that does that because in other variations of fantasy that I play anyway, so Telegraph and Sun, they don't get the assist points there, and hence that's why Rudiger didn't pick up the 3 points for the assist for Mount's penalty. And third overall, Rafinha, he's actually owned more than I thought he would be. His overall ownership is 62% in the top 1,000, which was much higher than what I thought it was. So 2 points for him. We saw his tweet, or his Instagram post saying he was fine after it.
He said he'd be back soon, but not sure what that means. I think I don't know. I think everyone thought soon meant back next match, but I think if he was back next match, I'm trying to think like what I would tweet. I'd said back next week or something, or like back soon to me is incredibly vague, but who knows? I nearly transferred him out today from Bummer, which I'm obviously glad I never. But it's only because of the fact that he's probably the best captaincy option next week against Norwich is why I left him in. So we'll have to see about that. Hopefully he's okay.
Gallagher, 2 points. So I've just got no expectations for Gallagher. He's just like, for me, he reminds me a lot, not from the way that he plays, but the way that he scores points in Sky for Harry Arter a few seasons back. I think he was 7.4 million when he played for Bournemouth. He'll just sit in my team all season. I don't care if he's not got captaincy days coming up. I'm just happy for him to sit there and not use transfers in and around there. I think it's maybe unnecessary. Cancelo, I also brought in Cancelo yesterday, so he got 6 points. He picked up passing and shooting bonus in the game against Brighton.
He was lucky not to score, I thought, as well. He had a couple of really good shots, did he?
Yeah. 59% owned in the top 1,000. Then it comes to Mendy, so he's kind of my Achilles heel at the moment. just churning out points week after week. 9 points for him, so well done to owners of Mendy.
Through
Gray,
gritted teeth.
who through gritted teeth. Yeah, I think he has. I think he has a solid pick. I'd have moved Sal onto Mendy by now had it not been for that pesky single captaincy day. Gray, who you brought in as well this week, Fergi, is that right? 5 points for him against Watford, the demolition from Watford of Everton.
Bizarre result that was, wasn't it? For both teams. I mean, like Everton
the worst one's Sarr, Alan Sarr.
Oh, he didn't get anything, did he?
No, and he got taken off when it was 2-1, and now I'm not convinced his place is safe as well. And Ranieri might be, like, I know he wasn't, like, obviously he was the tinker man at Chelsea, and then he wasn't the tinker man at Leicester, right? I was talking to someone the other day, and I could name that Leicester 11 now because he played the same Leicester 11 every game week. But so who knows what team he'll put out next week? But yeah, a crazy game. Diaz is 7th overall in ownership, 2 points for him. So as I said earlier on, I was happy that Dunk matched him based on his ownership could
I noticed last year, I said this on last year's pod with Diaz, why he was, in my opinion, so good at passing bonus. And it was because when Cancelo played, which was fairly often, because he used to go forward so often, City used to almost go into like a back three. Yeah. And Diaz would sit in the middle of the back three. Now, what's happening this year is Laporte is in that role and Diaz isn't. And Diaz is kind of... I watch him. I think when you're a Sky player, you watch games differently to what you watch other games. And I watch Diaz because I keep thinking, why aren't they passing to Diaz? And I don't know if you've noticed, but he drops back almost into like a sweeper role. And Laporte passes a lot straight to Kyle Walker on that right-hand side, or Cancelo's playing on the right-hand side, and they seem to skip out Diaz quite a lot. And it's just something to keep an eye on, because if he doesn't start to hit them regularly soon, I think 10.6 is a lot of money for someone who you're basically just banking on clean sheets and the odd bit of passing bonus. Personally, what do you think about that? You know, I don't mean that like around the observation. I mean around that.
Yeah, I've not got any inclination to get Diaz in. I'm not saying he's a bad fantasy option, but just with that 8 to 9.5 million price bracket in defence, there's a lot of value there just now. I know a lot of people are getting are wanting to move off Christensen, but I think there's other options in there like Lewis Dunk. Once you get the Liverpool game out of the way, so he's just smashing passing bonus every week. Now he's moved back into the middle of the three.
And I also think, again, sorry, just observationally on City, I think last year, and this may have been because of the crowds, right? The lack of crowds. They just used to knock it around namby-pamby and not really care about it. But I think Pep has got them trying to get the ball forward much faster. Similar to Liverpool, I suppose, in terms of get it through the lines and attack, and you haven't really seen that in previous years. And I am a bit concerned because he was absolutely nailed in my team, number one in my team without any shadow of a doubt because of what he did last year. But I do think it's changed this year, so I may have some kind of potential other route to someone like Kane. If I decide to, it seems a bit. It's one of those transfers, but when you do it, he'll start smashing his passing bonus every week. That's the problem. But it is worth bearing in mind, I think. I suppose.
Aubameyang 9 points, so mixed game for Aubameyang. Booking missed penalty, assist, shooting bonus, goal. But owners would have been happy with that. Antonio 7 points today, so he only got the single shot against Spurs. So he picks up the 2 for appearance and the 5 for the goal. Ben Rama 7.8 million. He fits into that category of I know that I don't own him, but I know that he'll be frustrating owners, and I know that people will be getting triggered like the itchy finger over the transfer button to transfer him out. But he's one of those players that'll turn around and get a couple of 10, 15 point hauls around the corner. You just know it. It'll be
nearly scored earlier. He got into shooting positions inside the 18-yard box a couple of times, and he had shots blocked. But they will go in from time to time, won't
they? Kane 2 points, so he only had the one shot on target today. It's I think next week's game against Manchester United is going to be very, very interesting. I think.
You're right.
let's see if Man United tighten up or not. Duffy, 0 points, so he was on the bench, and I don't think that he's going to come in against Liverpool. He's too immobile, and Liverpool will tear him to shreds, I think. And then whether he comes in against Newcastle, I don't think he will either. I think Webster was back as well. I think they prefer Dunk in the middle. Any Celtic fans out there that watched Duffy last year was surprised why he probably still plays professional football. I think he was absolutely atrocious in the Premier League. Although I own Duffy and he's done really well for me in Sky this season. So I'm certainly not. I'm not knocking him. I just don't think that he fits into Potter's style anyway, and that he stayed in the team through merit because he didn't have anyone else to play there. And he did perform well at the start of the season, but their fixture run was kinder. And I think now that they're going into much trickier fixtures, I personally don't think he'll get his place back. So owners might be looking for an exit plan. He's owned by 26.9% of the top 1,000. Marçal had a small knock, but I've seen a tweet yesterday suggesting that he'll be back for that single game day next week. So those that have got him, I guess, will be hoping that he can cover off that captaincy there. Azpilicueta also 0 points. I own Azpilicueta, and he won't be going anywhere from my team.
He's had his random bench, and he's on. I think it's his first or second one of the season. He'd be back and smashing it all, won't he, again?
Yeah, no concerns there. Sa, says my keeper. He got 4 points yesterday. I was livid when they conceded the penalty. Semedo, just joke of a defender. Havertz 2 points. Like, I know you want to talk about that. 7-0 thrashing, and Havertz didn't pick up anything. And Sky's different to FPL because obviously didn't get any assists or goals. But then we think, all right, maybe he picked up shooting bonus or anything, but like nothing for Sky owners either.
It seems like Hanley was the only player for Norwich who had a half decent game. I
thought Hanley, like at a 7-0 defeat, I would give Hanley a solid 7 out of 10 yesterday. I thought he played really, really well. Just let down by everybody else.
It was shocking. I'm only laughing because I brought in an FPL. I did my like deadline stream on Friday evening for the FPL, and I was basically just encouraging the whole FPL words, bring Havertz in, bring him in, and but again, like it's one of those things. Like obviously we're very experienced players, right? I never brought in Havertz in Sky because I'm trying to play a bit of a longer game, obviously in Sky. So every transfer I'm making in Sky, I'm thinking of the kind of medium term at least rather than the short term. But brought the number 9 in for a team for the European champions against an absolutely shambolic defence, and your team wins 7-0. And when you look at it like that, and I see a lot of people on Twitter and social media are kind of laughing at people who brought in Havertz. I'm like, no, you were the lucky ones. In my opinion, the ones who didn't bring him in are the lucky ones, because that is an outrageous stat. I noticed in FPL, I'm not sure if it's the same in Sky, but in FPL, it might have even been the same in Sky, but every single player, including the subs that came on, all scored some kind of return, who all got some kind of returns, and Havertz was the only player who didn't, which is just, you can't even write that. That is just insane hard luck, I think.
So Chelsea and Watford scored 12 goals yesterday, and Havertz and Sarr started for both the teams and got no attacking returns.
That's mental.
It's crazy. Van Dijk 18th on there. He got 9 points today, so picked up tier 1 pass in. Tielemans absolutely smashing it. He got man of the match. He got man of the match as well. So on top of his goal, so that's him. He just picks up points like all across the board.
You got him in, Paul?
I don't have him. No,
I do. I've got my hero this season.
Yeah, I've got 3 cheaper midfielders that like tick along nicely, and I've tried to make moves that like moves on the other side of the pitch. And then Sarr, who is an 18.4% of teams. He only got 2 points yesterday as well. I don't know what, like, I think owners should give him the game against Southampton and see what Ranieri does, and then it might be time to move off him as well. I have no idea if he's going to play won't start next week. No idea. They scored 4 goals when he wasn't on the pitch yesterday.
I think, yeah, I think he does play. I think he's a well. I think he does. He's a star player. He just it didn't for him yesterday. Maybe I'd hold on to him for a bit personally. You wanted to talk, Paul, just a bit about Aubameyang, because obviously his ownership as of today was 41%. So he has been sold by 9%. So 90 managers today, probably for someone like Kane or Salah, maybe. Dave, you just wanted to touch on Aubameyang and these few game weeks ahead.
Yeah, so a lot of people brought in Aubameyang, so I think he was sitting around 55% of the top 1K after the 2 single game days, and a lot like me had been mentioning on streams or on Twitter that they were just bringing him in for those 2 games and we're going to move off him. And other injuries have happened elsewhere, so I know that people's plans have changed. So Lukaku and such like. My original plan was bring him in and then move him on, let him play next week against Leicester, and move him on to Ings on the Sunday, and then Ings plays the Sunday against West Ham, and then covers off that captaincy against Southampton, and then move Ings on at a point in the future. That plan in my head's changed because I'm not convinced Ings starts next week for Villa. He might well do, and I'm sure Villa fans will have a better grasp on this than me, but I don't think the 3/5 at the back's working for them, and I think they'll end up going one up top. And it might be that Ings plays up top and Watkins plays out left, but he's not played out left for Villa, and I think the thought is that he did that for Brentford before, and that might happen. So that was my plan. But plans change, and I thought that I'd give 4 exit routes for Aubameyang owners if they're looking to do stuff. So Sky Game Week 12, which is next week, they play Leicester on Saturday, so you're getting the game in hand there, and then you can move to either a West Ham or a Villa player on the Sunday, or an Everton or Wolves player on the Monday night. So for those teams, I guess you can move on to Antonio, and that might be a popular move if Rafinha doesn't start for Leeds against Norwich, because people will be without a captain on Sunday. The Villa players, strange now. I think Watkins plays, so maybe moving on to Watkins that covers that captaincy. I don't know if it's a move that I would personally make, but
he scored 1 goal this season, Watkins, haven't he?
Yeah, exactly.
He's not looking like on it at all, are they?
And he's not hit shots bonus as well. Ings had hit shots bonus in a couple of games, which was another reason why I was going to go him. If I was moving to an Everton or a Wolves player, it would be for the thought of restructuring my team and nothing else. So it would be bringing in a cheaper player like Gray or Townsend or Hwang from Wolves, with a view that I've then saved some budget that I can move up to another striker further down the line. So Game Week 12 is an option. Game Week 15, so that's after the international break. So you see all the international break injuries, and it might be.
I think that's really important. Because I think a lot of people got stung, didn't they? By there's the COVID thing. There's the whole. Well, I think Brazil in particular played 3 games, and a couple of other South American teams, which meant they were late back. Jimenez was it was affecting others. I do think there's only 2 on the next break, but I do think like a bit of advice, which or a tip, which I've definitely fallen foul in the past. There's probably a good tip to maybe share with those kind of less experienced is. Unless it's someone like Salah or Kane, for example, some absolute must-have, I personally would never make a transfer the weekend before an international break, because the amount of time they've been stung by it is just absolutely unbelievable. Or another player, another person in your team is injured, and then you could have brought the same player in for the injured player after, if that makes sense. Anyway,
that's okay. So Arsenal play on the Saturday again. They play Liverpool, which isn't a great game, but you're still gaining the extra game from Aubameyang playing, and then you can move on to a Man City player or a Spurs player on the Sunday. So Kane, Son, Diaz, I guess would be option because he's quite expensive. Game Week 16, Sky Game Week 16, they play Newcastle. Arsenal play Newcastle on the Saturday, so a nice fixture again for Aubameyang. And then there's multiple choice of assets on the Sunday, so you get extra games from Spurs, Man City, Man United, Chelsea, so could move on to one of those assets. And then Game Week 18, Sky Game Week 18 is another opportunity. So Arsenal play Southampton on Saturday the 11th. You would have already gained the captaincy versus Everton on the game week 17 single game day. So you've got a captain covered there. Aubameyang plays on the first game day, so on the Saturday, and then you can move on to, again, Kane, Son, or a Leicester asset on the Sunday. So what I think I'm saying in conclusion to this is that I wouldn't be in a hurry to get rid of Aubameyang, because there's multiple opportunities where he plays on a Saturday and you can gain an extra fixture by coming off him.
Paul, thank you. That game week 18 is very exciting. That's that midweek one, isn't it, where there's games every day. And just, we're not going to touch on everything in December in terms of fixtures in this podcast, but I can't remember a more crowded December in terms. I had to look through. There's 31 days in December, and there must be a game in 21, 22 of them. I think is absolutely nuts. That'll be the time where we're going to probably rifle through our transfer guests, and then it's obviously African nations straight after that as well. So it's going to be interesting. Just in times. Just got questions. So in the chat, Stephen C was just looking at total points. Salah's on 121 points in total. That is absolutely ridiculous. Vardy is second on 69. How insane is that? He's got nearly double the amount. That is absolutely crazy. And Darren says he moved Oberon to Laporte, which decent move. I think Laporte. I think in terms of freeing up funds, I can't bear to do Diaz to Laporte, but if there was some kind of potential daisy chain or something, or something like that, it could be an option. But I think, is he 9.1 Laporte? I think he
9.5. I think.
Oh, 9.5. Apologies. Yeah, and Matt Sky FF, Everton or Villa don't inspire confidence at the moment. Agree. Just got a couple of questions. Foden, someone asked in the chat.
Laporte is 9.1, Fergi, sorry.
Oh, he's 9.1. Someone mentioned in the chat just around Foden being, and is he essential fire and blood? Is Foden a must? Obviously he's not a must, but I am interested in your thoughts on Foden. Obviously had a really good season towards the I think he missed a lot of games in the first half of last season, Premier League games. He played a lot more in the Carabao Cup and Champions League, but in the second half of the season he played a lot of games. What are your thoughts on him moving forward as an option?
33 points in his last 3 games, 9.6 million. Yeah, definitely interesting. It's that. Would you be comfortable captaining him if Man City wasn't the first kickoff time on the day?
But I do think in December, you get to see Man City's lineups quite a lot, don't you? But he seems to play well. He seems like he plays all over the place. I don't know if you watched the game last night against Brighton, but he absolutely.
Yeah, I was counting Dunk's passes.
Of course you were. He absolutely frightened the life out of me, Foden. He is just an absolute beast, and he should have probably got more than he did. He got 2 goals and assist. He should have had another 1 or 2 as well. I would guess he's definitely someone who I'm interested in. So definitely not essential, obviously, but moving forward, he could be someone that enters our thoughts, I think. And you just mentioned then, as we walk through the fixtures around, bringing Kane or Son, you said. I'm quite interested in this for a number of reasons, budgetary reasons and everything else. Now, whenever I think of Tottenham, I think of Kane. When I think of captaincy, just obviously purely because he plays the furthest forward most of the time. He's on penalties, even though we're seeing less and less pens this year, which I do think, maybe a factor to think about. Gets shots, gets shots away all the time with shots bonus and stuff. Do you think there's an argument to go for Son? Have you got any inclination to go for Son, or do you think it's Kane all the way?
I can't remember that. I can't remember ever owning Son in Sky. Genuinely, I always go Kane because I just like the premium player and the high ownership player, and I think there's less risk. But not that there's not to be a lot said for that. I just think I'd probably captain that person quite a few times, and if it was a one-off game where I was captaining Son, I'd probably be less. I'd probably be more risk adverse, but I think with it being multiple games, I'd feel much more comfortable captaining Kane.
No, I'm the same. I just wondered because I think I've owned Son a couple of times and twice he's had a red card. But obviously that's just a freak what you think. But yeah, I just think with Kane, if you're watching Spurs and Spurs are playing well, which you'd likely only own Kane if Spurs were looking reasonably decent. and you're getting all these chances and shots away. The ball's coming through all the time. It's a scary prospect again, not owning it.
Spurs feels like a team, and you're a fan, Fergie, so you might be able to testify to this. But they seem to get a lot of penalties. Like Kane gets, it feels like he gets quite a lot of goals from penalties in the season as well.
I don't think he's had any this year, is he? I may be
well,
wrong, but I don't think so.
Not so much that not so much this year, but it certainly feels like that. Like,
oh, he has, yeah, like Kane and Son and Ali, like to a lesser degree, Ali probably in terms of he tends to dive a bit more. I think Kane lets himself fall over, a bit as well at times. But yeah, I think you're right. It's probably because when they're playing well, they spend a lot of time in the opposition penalty area, stuff. But yeah, I don't think they've had any this season. I don't. And Paul, you've got a couple of players you think are going under the radar.
Yeah, so it's looking through Twitter teams and asking for advice on transfers and looking at teams, and I thought that I'd mentioned 5 players that I think could do well over the next kind of short run. Last time I did this, I think I had varying degrees of success. Like, you laughed at me off air prior to going on, saying that you thought it was a joke, and I was adamant that it wasn't a joke. So that, like, on last time, there was a couple of howlers. Like, Jack Harrison has done horrendously this season. However, Andros Townsend, he's scored in the last, since we had that discussion, I think it's 6 game weeks, he scored 39 points, and he scored 15 of those in the single game day against Burnley, where people would have captained him as well. So he would have returned pretty well. And I had picked Liam Cooper, who I think scored 6 points in that. He hasn't done particularly great, but for 6.9 million, he scored 6 points in that single game day against Newcastle as well. So he was in the top kind of 3 or 5 players that scored points from that game day. As I say, there was a couple of poor ones in there as well. But 5 players, I think, for this run. Lewis Dunk, 9th overall for points for defenders. He's moved back into the middle of the defence, so he's back on passing bonus again. He wasn't at the start of the season, and I think that was kind of detrimental to him. He wasn't picking up passing bonus, and that's maybe why he wasn't highlighted as much to other Sky managers this season. He got 76 passes against City yesterday, just to back that up. And I think he always looks a goal for it. He's had numerous times this season, he's had 1 shot on target. I think a goal and some shooting bonus will come into play. This weekend's probably not the best time to get him because they're away to Liverpool. But after that, they've got a decent-ish run.
Yes, lovely. So I was looking, they got Newcastle, Villa, Leeds, West Ham, Southampton, and Spurs. You suspected getting a lot of those games, wouldn't
you? Yeah. Kuka, I think is how you pronounce it, from Watford. 6.5 million midfielder. He started both games under Ranieri. He had started most of I think all the games bar 1 prior to that as well. He covers a single game day against Brentford coming up. And he picked up tackle bonus 5 times this season. So add that to his goal and his shooting bonus at the weekend there. Seems like quite a versatile player in terms of versatility and points getting for Sky managers.
Isn't Kuka some kind of wife swapping thing or something? Is that right?
I don't know. And I was going to say something else that's probably not wise to say on air. So,
or the khakis in the bold. Anyway, go on.
Livramento, 6.5 million defender, so nice option there. Very attacking. On top of his goal yesterday, he could have had a couple of assists and another goal as well. He looks really, really good. I think Chelsea's got a buyback clause, and you can see why they've had that in place. He covers a single game day against Villa as well if you don't have a captain. So this could be an ideal Duffy swap to. He is averaging for the season 0.80 points per million per game, which, going on Carl Weeks' gold standard that used to write in articles for the Hub, that was 0.70 was the gold standard that he looked for, so well above that. So like in really, really good value territory there, Livramento. 2 more. Kovacic, 7.8 million. He's in that kind of friendly bracket for midfielders. He's getting all kinds of bonus. And he's played a part in every game this season. So for those that think, Chelsea midfield rotation, he's played a part, not necessarily started, but he's played a part every game this season. And he's picked up tackle bonus, passing bonus, shooting bonus, man of the match. a goal or two in there as well. And then lastly, a player that didn't start the season particularly well and's probably put players off, but was a sensation last season, is Hoiberg. So he's now got 30 points in his last 4 games. He's kind of back to finding those tier points like he was last season as well.
And Spurs got a really nice run ahead of them, haven't they? They got United next week, which is decent. But the 5 games after that are probably as good as you can get at the moment. Everton, Leeds, Burnley, Brentford, and Norwich as well.
Yeah,
that's the time for some really good options there, Paul. You've got me tempted on a few of them. I can't get this Diaz out of my head, this whole like 10.6, because I'm having to make a couple of other moves I don't particularly want to kind of make in order to fit him in and take players out, maybe like Rafinha or someone like that who I don't really want to take out. But you got me thinking now. Diaz to dunk even, 2.4 million. That's all the money I need. Someone up to or whatever it is. Even Kovacic, even Livramento, because I haven't got a captaincy for that Southampton game. Tempted me now. Flipping heck. Okay. Let's have a look ahead to game week 12. So 3 days next game week. We see the lineups for Leicester and Arsenal on Saturday. It's Burnley and Brentford, Liverpool, Brighton, City, Palace, Newcastle, Chelsea, Watford, Southampton, and Spurs, Man United. After watching that Man United game earlier, I'd be quite excited if I was, because I think that Kane owners will maybe they got United. I could see them all doing serious damage next week. Captaincy, it's very difficult to probably look away from Salah, especially after what City did. Again, like City's front 3 yesterday just ripped Brighton apart time after time. Very kind of reminiscent, really, of what Liverpool did to United earlier. So you probably expect a similar sort of play with the captaincy beyond Salah.
Yeah. Pretty easy for me for Saturday, I think.
Yeah. Any potential transfer opportunities there to move on and off players, or is it just a bog standard?
Well, you see, like Southampton are playing Watford away, and if you did have Duffy, and you wanted an easy switch to someone else, cover off the captaincy the following week, I think Livramento would be a good move.
And then obviously on Sunday, Norwich and Leeds. So this is what people have been holding onto Rafinha for. That's the reason I didn't tell him earlier. Then Villa, West Ham. So I've got both Rafinha and Antonio. So I think I should be fine either way. Who would you choose out of the two? Who would be your best captain? Just obviously knowing what we know now.
If Rafinha starts, I'd pick Rafinha. I think Villa go back to the formation they played last season, and they were stifling teams a lot better with 4 at the back and flooding midfield than what the team's set up like now. So I think I would go Rafinha if I knew that he was starting in the first game.
Yeah, I think I'm the same. And then on Monday, Wolves and Everton. So this is part of the reason why I brought in Gray in yesterday, because I didn't have any cover for this game. I don't expect, Gray to be banging in braces or anything like that, but when he plays well, he's very, very involved in the attacks. I think he's had a couple of man of the match as well, haven't he? Because he's played exceptionally well. I think he had man of the match against, I want to say, United a few weeks ago. I don't even think he got an attacking return in that game. He was just absolutely exceptional. Yeah,
that's right.
What do you think about this Wolves and Everton? Opportunity to bring in players or off players?
If you've got a long-standing injury, I would move off someone. But if you don't, I wouldn't bother. I wouldn't. I just don't see anyone like getting a massive haul.
Same, yeah, yeah. I think I normally find the keepers tend to do well in these games. I don't know if it's Monday night games.
Fingers crossed.
yeah, for you, yeah. But I always find when there's like a televised match or it's like a Monday night match, they always seem to go. I don't know, in the last year, I don't know whether I'm just being biased. They always seem to go the way of the highly owned bloody keeper for whatever reason.
Yeah.
Like
Nick Pope special, right?
Exactly, yeah. And it tends to happen. And there was a couple of occasions, end of last season. Who was the keeper who brought in? I I didn't make the move, but a couple of people did, and I'm sure they had like
Patricio.
Patricio, that was it as an example. Now I was like, what are you bringing in Patricio for? And it just so happened because he was the only one. He was like the natural move, and
it works for every player apart from Guaita, I think.
Yeah, I think you're right. Yeah, I think you're right there. Okay, we've got a few questions. Thank you so much for everyone who has sent in some questions. DB asks, with 0.8 in the bank, should I immediately bin Pickford for Mendy after Everton single v Wolves and then worry about Arsenal-Everton one nearer the time? So Arsenal-Everton, from memory, is that like the 10th of December, I want to say? Is that right? I'm not sure. Everton-Arsenal.
Yeah. I wouldn't be... Yeah, it's Arsenal-Everton is Monday the 6th of December.
Sorry, the 6th.
I wouldn't, because it's a Monday game, that if you did want to make a move onto Sunday, then like you're gaining an extra fixture. I genuinely, at this moment in time, would not be looking that far ahead. If you've got the money to get Mendy, I would do it the following week. Chelsea are at home at Burnley.
I'd do it, and also in that time, Everton face Spurs, Man City, and Liverpool as well before they reach that Everton game. You're bound to get more points off Mendy out of that, aren't you? So I would do that. Luke NDN passing bonus still seems off it this season compared to last. We think it'll pick up again. Yeah, it is interesting that I saw Liverpool as soon as Pogba got the red earlier, they just all started rattling it around to each other, didn't they? But passing does seem to be down. Do you think there's any reason for that? And do you think there's an issue with it? I mentioned about Diaz earlier. I think it's slightly tactical play in City getting the ball forward more, and he switched that right centre back rather than left. Do you think there's like a general theme?
Well, Van Dijk started to pick it up again the last couple of games, didn't he? So I don't know. I think it'll all deviate to the norm again.
You do
at some point. I think so. Yeah.
Well, Diaz bloody.
Because if you look at Hoiberg was really off passing at the start of the season. He's gotten it now. Maybe it's to your point about the crowd thing at the start of the season. Now that it's getting back into the swing and.
David Baxter, do we hold Duffy for the Newcastle game? See if he plays. We won't see the lineups. Or get him out next weekend. Assume he won't play because of the same tactical change they made against City. Or you've moved off Duffy already, haven't you?
Yeah, I did that. I upgraded Duffy to Kane, which after his 2 points, I was saying to you before, and you're like, "Oh, who did you move him on to?" Like I was like, "Come on, all disappointed," and you're like, "Who'd you move him on?" And I was like, "Kane," and you're like, "Oh, well, that's all right." And is it not? And I was like, it was more because I was maybe thinking of doing something a little bit different, but. I don't like, based on what we'd said earlier on, I don't think he'll retain his place. But I've got no inside knowledge or anything, and I'm not a Bright, like I don't like speak to any Brighton fans, but I think that Potter will set up go back to what was set up at the start of the season, with Webster playing on the sort of back of on the right of the back three.
Tom Sky FF, I've got this boggle as well. What to do with Christensen? Lack of game time begins to get annoying. Thinking Tielemans or Dunk. So my current thinking, because I own Christensen, obviously their next two, Newcastle and Burnley, are awesome fixtures. They do get a little bit tougher after that. Well, I say that. Leicester, Man United. Well, it's not that tough actually, because the teams who we're talking about are massively not informed. Leicester, Man United, Watford, West Ham and Leeds. But I think what I'm going to do is play out these next two as a minimum. I don't see the point in doing it because, he's obviously very, very likely to do well against both of those defences. If he plays either in one or the other, he'll probably, get like a 9-pointer or something anyway, and maybe reassess after that. But I don't see any massive need to rush him out personally. What about you, Paul?
I would do the same, and then if you're adamant after the two that you want to move him on, then Tielemans plays on the day after the Burnley home game.
Yeah, pretty good point. Ron, are we overlooking Kovacic, 7.8, regularly started, hitting a range of passing and tackle tiers, assists and a goal. Second highest scoring midfielder currently. I think we got over that. I think it's fair to say that.
Yeah, so Kovacic was on my... So Kovacic stood out for two reasons for me. One, I saw the tweet, so I knew that I knew that someone was asking the question. But second, he did come up. I looked at the points per game per million over the last 6 game weeks, I think, on Frank's FF Stuff site earlier on. So I was looking at players that are turning out value over the last small period of time, and Kovacic was on that list as well.
Well, yeah, I think it's a marvelous option, and I think if there was any kind of injury to any player, if Tielemans got injured, or or Rafinha's injured, or anyone kind of around that price, even Christensen onto him, or or whatever else, then I think he's probably close to the number 1 pick. I do like Dunk as well for the passing, but yeah, hard to argue. Looks fantastic option. Warren Moon thinks Rice is being overlooked at 7.4 if you're just short there. Evening Jens is off FPL Hambone. What are you lads doing about Rafinha? Moved him instead of St. Max onto Mbomo today, but not sure it's the right move. If he turns up on the team sheet next Sunday, I know I'll get him back. Well, yeah, you don't want to be doing that every week, FPL Hambone, because you will very, very quickly run out of transfers.
If you owned Antonio, I wouldn't bring him back. I do think that if Rafinha starts, he's the best captain next Sunday. But if you owned Antonio, I wouldn't bring Rafinha back. If you had a captaincy covered on the Sunday, I wouldn't do anything.
Just some advice, for FPL Hambone, don't be hokey cokey in transfers, like just like you may do in other ones, because you'll find that after Christmas you won't have anything left. It's just hold on, if you weren't sure on Rafinha, just maybe held on till next week and then found out. And if you find out in the week now he's injured, if he doesn't start next week, you know what to do. You don't want to be using 2 transfers out of your 40 for the whole season on one man. Mark Sky FF, is hold on to players for these shitty single game days worth it at the moment with all the injuries this season? Yeah, I meant to ask you earlier, Paul, but I kind of I forgot to ask it. You mentioned earlier, so historically, how you've played the game and how you've had so much success over the years is you used to plan, I don't know, maybe 6, 8, or even 10 games in advance, and very intricately plot your transfers to maximize the number of games, make sure you had the captaincies and stuff. And historically, pre-COVID, it's probably fair to say, it worked really well. I've tended to play like this to a lesser extent, in terms I would maybe look, I'd have those future fixtures in mind, but I would only tend to probably look between 3 to 6 weeks in terms of making actual moves themselves. Do you think that is now the kind of period you're starting to kind of look at instead of longer, or is it a sooner period?
Yeah. I've changed the way that I play. I used to hold on to those single players. So I've got Jose Sa. It wasn't for that Everton single game day, although like 2-3 weeks in advance, I wouldn't be taking them out for that reason. But I certainly wouldn't be picking a player now with a view that in 10 game weeks time that they've got, if that you've picked up Gray, which is fine because it covers our captaincy next week on a single game day, and that makes sense. It was a player that you were going to take out anyway and brought him in. If it was bringing in, I need to bring in a mid-priced, like I've just had an injury in midfield at a 7.8 bracket, and I need to bring in someone now with a view of a captaincy 10 weeks down the road. I would it's not something that I would do now, whereas before I would have taken that much more strongly into my consideration. If it's someone I brought in Kane today, and it wasn't for today's fixture because I knew I was captain in Salah, and it wasn't for the next 2 fixtures, but Kane's a player that he could get injured or suspended or something, right? But I know that I want him in 3 game weeks time, and I'm sitting with Duffy in my team who I don't think is going to play anymore, and I had all the budget, so that's why I moved on to Kane for that. But yeah, if it was for a single game day of a mid-table team, I wouldn't be planning that far in advance now.
I think as well, I think over these last 2 seasons since we've been doing this all as well, we've always learned, I've obviously learned a great deal of yourself and Dan and others as well, but I think the thing which I have taken away, which I've learned the most about, is, let's use the Mendy and Pickford example earlier. So hold on to Pickford for the next say 6 games, maybe gets 2 clean sheets, right? In that time, Mendy gets 4 or 5 because he's an elite keeper playing for an elite team, there's 27 points already made up before you even get to that game. Everton defensively are not great anyway against Arsenal. So holding on to all those points. In the meantime, also missed out on all these points. You play him against Arsenal, he's probably unlikely to keep a clean sheet. In my view, you may get like 2 or 4 points, but then even your bonus you're getting then is only the second half of the 4. So if you get 4, even if you get like a clean sheet and get 9 points, you only get to gain in 9 points there, are you? So I'm very much of this thing. I think it was the Man City jump on last year made me think. Remember when we all jumped on Man City? Some jumped on more than others, right? Yeah. If you jumped on that Man City where they had those 6 incredible games and you jumped on 4 or 5 defenders, you were basically getting 60 points per game, which in terms of when you look at these crappy single-day captaincies, a lot of them are just not worth it. So it's obviously a tough balance, and some of them will work and some of them won't. Look at Van Aanholt last year. Sorry, we got, even White this time around, they're just absolute shite. Whereas, the one we mentioned earlier with Patricio for Wolves at the end of the season, he got like an 11-pointer, 22-pointer. That's massive at that time of the season. So it's very, I think a good rule of thumb maybe, because I do think that people got Patricio in for that captaincy because he had a run of 5 decent games as well, is maybe not look at, if you look at the game in isolation and it's awful, I'd probably leave it. But if it coincides with a decent run or maybe another captaincy a couple of weeks down the line, maybe do it. How do you, do you think that's like a fair assessment of the player? Have you got any?
Yeah, I don't really think I've got much more to add to that. I was saying about the Everton fixture next week. They embark on like a poor run of games after that. I think you'd mentioned earlier on. So definitely be take the fixtures into consideration as well.
In Your Dreams asks, thinking to move on from Townsend after the Everton Wolves game, thoughts on Declan Rice, safe budget for Kane or Ronaldo? So a couple of people have mentioned Declan Rice. I've got to be honest, he's not someone who I've looked at all. Have you looked at him at all, Paul?
He's got 41 points this season, which was more than what I thought he would have. He's not someone that I think I would consider, but then he's got more points than Mbeumo, who's much more points than Mbeumo, and he's only I say much more. He's got 12 more points than Mbeumo, and it's only 0.2 more. It's not someone I'd considered, but he is churning out the points. It's not usually like me to sit on the fence. I usually say yes or no.
Yeah.
I'll go no, but
okay. Okay, and Mark has thoughts on, I could never say this guy's name, Gehi, a 7.2 for Palace. Hits passing tiers pretty consistently. I was just having a quick glance at their fixtures there. They have got Man City away next week, which is obviously not a very nice fixture, but they're 4 of the next 5 after that are very, very nice, including Wolves at home, Burnley, Villa at home, Leeds, Everton. So, he may get him in that. He could be a decent one. There's also Webster. Chris underneath that immediately says Webster. Out of those two, who would you
I'd prefer Webster of those two. I still prefer Livramento at 6.5 million more than the two of those as well. The Crystal Palace are playing some like nice passing football. They have only kept 2 clean sheets this season though, and they've had a run of semi-easy games, I would say.
Cool. Okay, let's take a look at the top of the Fantasy Football Hub £500 league. I'm in 10th place. Look at this for a rise. I don't think I've ever seen a rise big as this. Stephen Saunders rose from 110th to 10th place today in one day, which is absolutely insane. So goodness knows who he had. But well done, Stephen. He may have had like a Liverpool back line or something as well as Salah. 9th place, Liam Stevens. 8th, Ryan West. 7th, Matthew O'Grady. 6th, Gareth Solomon. 5th, Darren Malloy. 4th, Elsie Bishop. 3rd and 2nd, Hub contributors, both of them, Rob Watson-Lang and Maurice Weeks, who is Carl Weeks. I'm not sure if Carl would appreciate me saying that, actually, because he's called himself a different name, a pen name. But and first, still, John Kerr absolutely walking away with it. 944 points. I believe, looking at it, he was 7th overall. So very, very well played there, John. And moving on to... It's not letting me move on. But... Paul, it's not letting me move on to your
to the Sky
onto the Four Nations League. No,
I'll read it down. So in 10th place, you've got Liam's second team on 739. 9th place, you've got my second team on 756. 8th place and 7th place, you've got Ian Parron's two teams on 795 and 789. 6th place, you've got Liam's first team on 801. Then it's Dan in 4th and 5th, 818 and 804. In joint second place, you've got your first team and your second team, 839, 839. And then way out in front, I think is how you say it, right?
Way out in front. Way out in front.
Is my first team on 901.
Are my two teams on exactly the same points?
Yeah, have you got exactly the same team?
No, that's why. No, it's very close, but
all right, yeah.
All right, that's odd. Yeah, decent. Well done, Paul. Absolutely flying at the moment. Liam will be sending the trophy all the way from Ireland up to Scotland as it stands, though. Over yet, Paul. It might be a backside, as they say. Okay, that's it from us for this week. We hope you have enjoyed. As usual, thank you so much, everyone, for joining us live. And for those that either watch or listen back, your continued support, as always, is much, much appreciated. Thank you very much, Paul, for all your brilliant insight, thoughts, answering all those questions. Where can people find you, Paul?
On Twitter at Paul McAnulty ones, MCANULTY.
And my Twitter handle is at FFH_Fergi. Make sure you drop us both a follow on Twitter. This podcast and video will be in the Fantasy Football Hub, Sky and TFF YouTube channel, and also available on all major podcast platforms. If you like what you watched, please click the like button. It would be much, much appreciated. And remember to subscribe to the channel in the bottom right-hand corner of the screen. If you enjoyed your listen, please rate the podcast versions and comments. Our handles on Twitter, Instagram, TikTok are at FFH_HQ, and our podcast Twitter handle is at FFH_Sky. So please follow and feel free to ask any questions. Our website is fantasyfootballhub.co.uk, where you'll find everything you need for fantasy football, all under one roof, including player comparison tools, the fixture ticker, Opta stats, top player team reveals, and much, much more. We will be back next week, looking ahead to game week 13. The season's absolutely flying by. Stay safe. And good night all.